Sometimes the truth reveals itself in the most brutal way possible. Not through words, not through statements, but through what happens when two players share the same court and only one of them belongs there. Angel Reese walked into Team USA camp expecting respect, recognition, a guaranteed roster spot based on her reputation and college dominance. What she got instead was a masterclass in humility delivered by Caitlin Clark. This wasn't a close competition. This wasn't even a rivalry. This was exposure at the highest level, witnessed by coaching legends and Olympic champions who've seen everything basketball has to offer. And what they saw made Angel Reese quit. Not benched, not demoted. She actually left the camp before evaluations even finished, packed her bags and walked out while Caitlin Clark continued dominating every drill, every scrimmage, every single moment that would determine Team USA's future. The question everyone's asking isn't why Reese quit. It's how she ever thought she belonged in the first place. Because when Clark returned to Team USA camp after months of injury recovery, something extraordinary happened. Something that exposed the massive gap between talent that talks and greatness that speaks through performance. Sue Bird stood courtside with her arms crossed watching. Coach Cheryl Reeve took notes. Diana Taurasi studied every possession. These aren't people who get impressed easily. They've seen Jordan. They've seen Kobe. They've watched greatness at every level. And they watched Caitlin Clark dominate like she owned the gym. Here's what nobody expected. Clark hadn't touched a basketball competitively since mid-July. A groin injury, then a quad strain, then an ankle bone bruise that kept her sidelined for most of her sophomore season. She played only 13 games after record-breaking rookie year, where she shattered 62 different WNBA records. Everyone wondered if those months away had cost her that special edge, that explosiveness, that confidence that made her impossible to guard. The gym held its breath as she took her first shots. And then Clark started raining logo threes like she'd never left the court. That signature step-back jumper looked crisp and confident from the very first drill. 30 feet out. Swish. Again. Swish. 3 straight shots without even warming up properly. The sound of the net barely moved as each shot found perfect center. Players stopped their own drills to watch, because what they were witnessing wasn't just a player returning from injury. This was someone operating at a completely different level than everyone else in the building. Sue Bird couldn't hide her amazement. She looked great, Bird said afterward, shaking her head. The rhythm looks great. Here's a player that didn't get to play this summer. So for this to be the first day back, she looked great. Coach Cheryl Reeve was equally impressed. She looked good on both ends. Hasn't missed a beat. Terrific player who was really locked in and focused. But individual brilliance was only the beginning of what would unfold. Because while Caitlin Clark was proving she belonged among the elite, Angel Reese was discovering she didn't. The contrast became obvious immediately. Clark's pace was electric. Her court vision was surgical. Her passes threaded through defenses that other guards couldn't even see openings in. And Reese? She couldn't keep up. Her post-up game looked slow and outdated in a system built around pace and precision. While Clark pushed fast breaks at lightning speed, Reese needed extra time to establish position down low. While Clark created easy shots for teammates, Reese demanded post feeds that slowed down the entire offense. The coaching staff started noticing. Then teammates started noticing. Then everyone in that gym realized they were watching two players on completely different competitive levels. And Angel Reese's reaction to being outplayed? That's where the story gets really interesting. The first sign of trouble came during a simple passing drill. Nothing complicated. Just a rhythm exercise designed to get players comfortable moving the ball quickly through traffic. The kind of drill that elite basketball players should execute automatically. Caitlin Clark made it look like an art form. Her passes arrived exactly when teammates needed them. Chest passes with perfect velocity. Bounce passes that split defenders. No-look dishes that somehow found their target every single time. The coaching staff kept increasing the difficulty. Tighter windows, faster rotations, more defensive pressure. Clark adjusted instantly. Her basketball IQ was off the charts. She read defensive rotations 2 steps ahead and delivered passes that created easy scoring opportunities for everyone around her. Then Angel Reese rotated in. The difference was jarring. immediate, impossible to ignore. Reese's passes lacked precision. Her timing was off. She couldn't read defensive rotations quickly enough to make the right decision. Simple entry passes became turnovers. Easy reads became forced attempts that sailed out of bounds. Sue Bird watched from the baseline, her expression shifting from neutral observation to visible concern, because what she was seeing wasn't just a player having a bad day. This was a fundamental gap in basketball understanding. The drill moved to transition offense, Clark's specialty. She grabbed a defensive rebound and immediately spotted teammates sprinting down court. The pass left her hands before the defense could even set up. Her teammate caught it in perfect stride and finished at the rim before anyone could recover. They ran again. Same result. Clark controlled the tempo. She dictated when to push and when to pull back. Her decision-making was instant and almost always correct. The coaching staff tracked the numbers. Clark's transition offense generated 1.4 points per possession, elite efficiency at any level. Then Reese's group ran the same drill. She grabbed the rebound and hesitated. That split-second delay allowed the defense to recover. Her outlets were late. Her reads were slow. By the time she made decisions, the easy opportunities had already disappeared. Her transition efficiency? 0.6 points per possession, below average for high school basketball. The contrast wasn't subtle. It was brutal, and everyone in that gym could see it. Jackie Young, who'd been practicing alongside both players, started naturally gravitating toward Clark's group during scrimmages. So did Brianna Stewart. So did every player who understood what winning basketball looked like. They wanted to play with someone who made them better, someone whose presence elevated their game instead of limiting it. Angel Reese noticed, and she didn't handle it well. During a water break, players overheard her complaining to an assistant coach, "I'm not getting enough touches in the paint. The system doesn't showcase my strengths." The assistant coach's response was diplomatic but firm. "The system showcases winning basketball. Everyone needs to adapt." Reese's body language changed immediately. Her shoulders slumped. Her energy shifted from engaged to withdrawn. She stopped talking during huddles and started rolling her eyes when coaches explained new sets. The veteran players exchanged glances. They'd seen this before. Players who couldn't handle not being a focal point. Athletes whose egos were bigger than their game. Diana Taurasi, who'd won 5 Olympic gold medals and knew exactly what it took to succeed at this level, pulled Reese aside after practice. What was said in that conversation remained private, but Reese's face when she walked away told the entire story. She looked devastated, angry, embarrassed, because Taurasi doesn't sugarcoat. She doesn't protect feelings. She tells you the truth whether you want to hear it or not. And apparently, Angel Reese did not want to hear it. The tension reached its breaking point during competitive scrimmages. The coaching staff divided players into teams based on similar skill levels and playing styles. Caitlin Clark's team. Jackie Young, Brianna Stewart, Alyssa Thomas, and Aaliyah Boston. Angel Reese's team. A mix of younger players and veterans fighting for the final roster spots. The matchup wasn't close. It wasn't competitive. It was a systematic demolition that exposed every weakness in Reese's game. Clark started the scrimmage by hitting a step-back 3 from 30 feet. Then another. Then a pull-up from the wing that barely touched the rim. 9 points in the first 3 minutes, all from beyond the arc. All while Reese was supposed to be guarding the paint. Reese tried to respond with her postgame. She backed down her defender, established position, and called for the ball. The pass arrived. Reese made her move. Brianna Stewart rotated over and blocked the shot, so cleanly it nearly went into the third row. Reese tried again on the next possession. Same result. Another block. Her frustration was visible, audible. She started complaining to referees about phantom fouls that weren't being called. Meanwhile, Clark was orchestrating offensive perfection. She threw a behind-the-back pass to Boston for an easy layup. She hit Jackie Young in stride for a transition 3. She ran a pick-and-roll with Stewart that ended in a wide-open dunk. 15 minutes into the scrimmage, Clark's team led by 23 points. The coaches stopped it early because it wasn't competitive anymore. It was just embarrassing. And that's when Angel Reese completely lost it. The whistle blew. Scrimmage over. Players from both teams headed to the sideline for water and coaching feedback. Everyone except Angel Reese. She stood at center court, hands on her hips, staring at the scoreboard like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her chest heaved, not from exhaustion, from rage barely contained beneath the surface. Coach Cheryl Reeve approached her calmly. Professional. The way championship coaches handle emotional players who need to be brought back to reality. Angel, let's talk about your positioning on. This system doesn't work for me. Reeve stopped mid-sentence. The gym got quiet. Because you don't interrupt Coach Reeve. Not if you understand anything about respect or basketball hierarchy. The system works for winning basketball, Reeve responded. Her tone measured but firm. Everyone needs to find their role within it. My role? Reese's voice got louder. My role is to dominate in the paint. But I can't do that when the offense is running at 100 miles per hour and nobody's getting me the ball in position. Sue Bird walked over. Diana Taurasi followed. When legends start converging on a conversation, you know something serious is happening. The pace is intentional, Burr explained, her voice calm but direct. International basketball is played fast. If you can't keep up with this tempo, you won't survive against teams like Australia or France. Reese shook her head. I kept up just fine in college. I kept up in the WNBA. This isn't college, Taurasi interjected. And the WNBA regular season isn't Olympic competition. The level here is completely different. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Because Taurasi wasn't being mean. She was being honest. And sometimes honesty feels like cruelty when your ego can't handle the truth. Reese's face flushed. Her jaw clenched. You could see her processing the reality that these legendary players, women who'd won everything basketball had to offer, didn't think she belonged at this level. So what are you saying? That I'm not good enough? The silence that followed was deafening, because nobody wanted to say it directly, but nobody was denying it either. Brianna Stewart, who'd been stretching nearby, decided to offer a different perspective. It's not about good enough. It's about fit. Your game requires a specific system to be effective. Team USA doesn't run that system. Then maybe Team USA needs to adjust. Reese shot back. Wrong answer. Completely wrong answer. You could see it on every veteran's face. The disapproval. The disbelief that a player with zero international experience was suggesting that Olympic champions should change their system to accommodate her limitations. Caitlin Clark, who'd been talking strategy with Aaliyah Boston on the other side of the court, noticed the commotion. She didn't walk over, didn't insert herself into the drama. She just watched quietly while staying focused on what actually mattered, getting better. That reaction alone said everything about the difference between these two players. One created problems, the other solved them. One demanded the system bend to her will. The other adapted and excelled within any system she entered. Coach Reeve ended the conversation with surgical precision. Tomorrow, we're running the same drills, same pace, same system. I suggest you spend tonight figuring out how to be more effective within it, because the system isn't changing. She walked away. The veterans dispersed, and Angel Reese stood there alone, realizing that her reputation meant nothing in this building. The next morning revealed just how deep Reese's frustration had grown. Players arrived for early shooting drills at 7 a.m. Caitlin Clark was already there, working on her release with an assistant coach. She'd been in the gym since 6:30, putting up hundreds of shots before official practice even started. That's what elite players do. They don't complain about systems. They outwork everyone and prove they belong through performance. Angel Reese showed up at 7:15, late by Team USA standards, where punctuality is non-negotiable. She went through her warm-up routine with minimal effort, half-speed stretching, lazy shooting form, the body language of someone who'd already checked out mentally. Jackie Young noticed. "You good?" she asked, genuinely concerned. "I'm fine," Reese muttered, not making eye contact. She wasn't fine, not even close. The morning session focused on defensive rotations and help side positioning, fundamental concepts that championship teams execute instinctively. Clark was everywhere. She anticipated passes before they happened. She rotated to help side defense without being told. She communicated constantly, directing teammates into proper position. Her defensive IQ was just as impressive as her offensive brilliance. Reese, by contrast, looked lost. She was consistently a step late on rotations. She didn't communicate. She ball-watched instead of tracking her assignment. Every defensive breakdown seemed to involve her missing a rotation or being out of position. The coaching staff kept correcting her. "Angel, you need to rotate here. Angel, help side defense means you move when the ball moves. Angel, you can't just stand in the paint. You have to be active." Each correction made her more visibly frustrated. Her responses became shorter. Her effort level dropped even further. And then came the drill that broke everything wide open. A full court scrimmage. First team to 15 wins. Winners stay on the court. Losers sit and wait for the next game. Caitlin Clark's team versus Angel Reese's team. Again, this time it was even worse. Clark hit her first 4 shots. All threes. All from different spots on the floor. She was putting on a shooting clinic while simultaneously running the offense with perfect efficiency. Reese managed 2 points in the first 10 minutes, both on offensive rebounds after her teammates missed shots. Her defender, Brianna Stewart, was giving her absolutely nothing in the paint. Every post-up attempt was met with physical defense and perfect positioning. Reese tried to back Stewart down. Stewart didn't budge. Reese called for the ball on the block. Her teammate passed it. Stewart stripped it clean before Reese could even make a move. Turnover. On the next possession, Reese set a screen for her guard, except she didn't actually set it properly. She just kind of stood there, allowing Clark to slip through and hit another three-pointer. The score was 13-3. Complete domination. And Angel Reese's breaking point had finally arrived. The ball went through the net for Caitlin Clark's 5th three-pointer of the scrimmage. The scoreboard read 14-3, 1 point away from victory. Angel Reese didn't even try to get back on defense. She just stood there at half court, hands on her knees, staring at the floor. The kind of body language that screams defeat, surrender, complete mental collapse. Her teammates jogged past her, tried to set up defensively without their post player. But it didn't matter. Clark wasn't done making her statement. She dribbled up court slowly, methodically, making eye contact with Reese as she crossed half court. The message was clear: "I see you giving up, and I'm about to make it worse." Clark sized up her defender from 20 feet out. 1 dribble, step back, release. Nothing but net. Game over. 15-3. The most lopsided scrimmage anyone in that gym had witnessed during the entire camp. Caitlin Clark's team celebrated with high fives and genuine excitement. Not because they'd beaten Reese's team, that was expected, but because they'd executed the system perfectly and played championship-level basketball. Angel Reese walked straight off the court without acknowledging anyone. No handshakes, no good game to opponents, just a direct path to the locker room, while everyone else stayed for coaching feedback. Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi exchanged a look. They'd seen this movie before. Players who couldn't handle being outclassed. Athletes whose egos wrote checks their talent couldn't cash. "She's done," Taurasi said quietly to Bird. "Yeah," Bird agreed. "She's not coming back from this." They were right. 20 minutes later, Angel Reese emerged from the locker room fully dressed in street clothes. Practice was still in session. Players were running through plays. Coaches were teaching. But Reese had changed out of her practice gear and packed her bag. Coach Cheryl Reeve noticed immediately. She walked over confused. "Angel, where are you going?" "I'm leaving." The gym got quiet. Players stopped mid-drill. Everyone turned to watch the conversation unfold. "Leaving? We have 3 more days of camp. Final roster decisions haven't been made yet." Reese shook her head. "It doesn't matter. I can see where this is going. The system doesn't fit my game. I'm not going to waste everyone's time." Reeves' expression shifted from confused to disappointed. "You're quitting." "I'm making a smart decision about my career. I need to focus on situations where I can actually contribute effectively." Translation: I can't compete with Caitlin Clark, and I'm not willing to accept a reduced role. Sue Bird stepped forward. "Angel, everyone here has had to earn their spot. Even players with Olympic gold medals had to prove they still belonged. That's how Team USA works." "I understand that," Reese replied, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. But when the system is specifically designed around one player's strengths, it's pretty obvious who's getting those spots. She looked directly at Caitlin Clark when she said it. Clark, who'd been stretching on the sideline, met her gaze but didn't say a word, didn't engage, didn't defend herself. Because champions don't need to argue with people who quit. Diana Taurasi wasn't as diplomatic. The system is designed around winning. If your game doesn't fit winning basketball at the international level, that's something you need to address, not blame the system for. Reese's jaw clenched. For a moment, it looked like she might say something she'd regret. But instead, she just grabbed her bag and headed toward the exit. "This is a mistake," Coach Reeve called after her. "You're giving up on an opportunity most players dream about their entire careers." Angel Reese paused at the door. "Turn back one last time. I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic about where I actually fit." Then she walked out. The door closed behind her with a finality that echoed through the silent gym. For several seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke, because they just witnessed something unprecedented in Team USA basketball history. A player had voluntarily quit camp rather than compete for a roster spot. Coach Reeve broke the silence. "All right, everyone back to work. We have a team to build." Practice resumed, but the energy had shifted. Players competed harder, focused more intensely, because Angel Reese's exit had sent a clear message. If you can't handle the pressure and competition, you don't belong here. Caitlin Clark didn't celebrate Reese's departure, didn't gloat or make comments to teammates. She just went back to work, running through plays with Aaliyah Boston and continuing to prove why she was the future of Team USA basketball. Her response to the drama? Ignore it completely and stay locked in on what actually matters. That's leadership. That's maturity. That's what champions look like when chaos erupts around them. After practice ended, reporters caught up with Sue Bird for her reaction to Reese leaving camp early. Bird chose her words carefully. Everyone handles competition differently. Some players rise to the challenge. Some players make different choices. The implication was obvious. Diana Taurasi was more direct when asked about it later. Team USA is about sacrifice and adaptation. If you can't do those things, you're in the wrong program. But the most telling reaction came from the players who stayed. Jackie Young posted on social media that evening, "Day 3 of camp complete. This group is special. Everyone here wants to win. That's all that matters." The emphasis on everyone here felt deliberate, a subtle acknowledgement that the team was better off without players who couldn't fully commit. Brianna Stewart liked the post. Immediately, so did Sabrina Ionescu. So did every player still at camp, grinding for their spot. The message was sent and received. Angel Reese had eliminated herself from Team USA consideration by proving she couldn't handle elite competition. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark was just getting started, showing what she could do when the stakes got even higher. Day 4 of Team USA camp began with renewed energy and focus. The distraction was gone. The negativity had removed itself. What remained was a group of players genuinely committed to building something special. Caitlin Clark arrived at the gym even earlier than usual. 6 a.m. The building was dark except for one court with lights on. She spent an hour working on specific international basketball scenarios. The three-point line is shorter in FIBA play. The lane is wider. The officiating is different. Elite players study these details and adjust their game accordingly. Clark practiced her release from the international three-point distance, worked on her footwork for the wider lane, studied film of previous Olympic Games to understand how referees called contact differently. This is what separates good players from great ones. The obsessive attention to details that most people never even notice. By the time other players started arriving at 7 a.m., Clark had already put up 300 shots and watched 40 minutes of film. Aaliyah Boston was the first teammate to join her. They developed incredible chemistry during their time with the Indiana Fever. But this camp was revealing an even deeper connection. "Ready to work?" Clark asked, firing a chest pass to Boston. "Always," Boston replied, catching it cleanly and finishing with a layup. They ran two-player drills for 20 minutes. Pick and roll, pick and pop, dribble handoffs. Every action designed to create advantages against international defenses. Their timing was supernatural. Clark would start her dribble and Boston would cut at the exact right moment. Clark would fake the pass and Boston would adjust her position instantly. They didn't need to talk. They just knew. Sue Bird watched from the sideline, shaking her head in amazement. She played with some of the greatest players in basketball history. But the connection between Clark and Boston reminded her of the chemistry she'd had with Diana Taurasi during their Olympic runs. "That's special," Bird said to Coach Reeve, who'd also arrived early to observe. "Very special," Reeve agreed. "That's the kind of partnership that wins gold medals." When full practice started at 8 a.m., the coaching staff introduced a new wrinkle: simulated international game situations with FIBA rules and officiating emphasis. The adjustment was immediate and obvious for some players. For others, it required significant adaptation. Caitlin Clark thrived in the new system. The shorter three-point line meant she was launching from even more ridiculous distances. Shots that would be deep NBA threes became standard FIBA attempts for her. She hit 7 straight from international range during one drill. The coaching staff stopped counting after that because it was just getting absurd. But her shooting was only part of what made her special in the international format. FIBA basketball rewards smart passing and ball movement even more than the WNBA does. The game is less isolation-heavy and more team-oriented. Players who can read defenses and make quick decisions absolutely dominate. That's Caitlin Clark's entire game. She ran the offense like a chess master playing against beginners. Every pass had a purpose. Every cut was timed perfectly. Every screen was used to create maximum advantage. During one possession, she executed a sequence that left the coaching staff speechless. Clark caught the ball at the top of the key. She immediately recognized the defense was in his zone. She made eye contact with Boston, who flashed to the high post. Clark delivered a bounce pass that split 2 defenders perfectly. Boston caught it, drew the defense's attention, and kicked it back out to Clark, who'd relocated to the wing. Clark caught it in rhythm and fired a pass across court to Breanna Stewart in the opposite corner. Stewart shot faked, drove baseline, and dumped it off to Jackie Young cutting to the rim. Easy layup, 5 passes for different players. Perfect execution, all orchestrated by Clark's basketball IQ and court vision. Coach Reeve called a timeout just to highlight that possession. That's Olympic basketball right there. That's what we're trying to build. Everyone touched it. Everyone contributed. That's how we beat teams with more size or athleticism. The players nodded, absorbing a lesson. But everyone knew who'd made that possession work. Clark's initial read and her ability to make the next 3 teammates better through her playmaking. The afternoon session focused on defensive principles against international offensive sets. European teams run intricate actions with lots of screening and cutting. Asian teams play at incredible pace with disciplined spacing. African teams combine athleticism with fundamentals that surprise opponents. Team USA needed defenders who could process information quickly and adjust on the fly. Clark proved she wasn't just an offensive weapon. Her defensive anticipation was elite. She jumped passing lanes for steals. She fought over screens instead of going under. She communicated constantly, directing teammates into proper rotations. During one defensive drill, she intercepted 3 consecutive passes by reading the opposing point guard's eyes and body language. All 3 steals led to transition opportunities where Clark pushed the pace and created easy scores. Sue Bird pulled her aside after that sequence. "Your defensive instincts are really impressive. Most offensive-minded guards don't process the game that quickly on defense." "Defense is just offense in reverse," Clark replied. "If you understand spacing and timing on offense, you can anticipate it on defense." Simple statement, profound understanding. That's the kind of basketball IQ that can't be taught. You either see the game at that level or you don't. Angel Reese never saw it. That's why she quit. But Clark's dominance wasn't just exposing players who didn't belong. It was elevating players who did. Aaliyah Boston was playing the best basketball of her career. Clark's playmaking was putting her in positions where she couldn't miss. Boston's efficiency numbers during camp were historically good because Clark knew exactly when and where to deliver passes. Jackie Young was thriving playing off Clark's gravity. Defenders collapsed on Clark so aggressively that Young was getting wide open looks she usually had to work much harder to create. Her three-point percentage during camp scrimmages was over 50% because of the attention Clark commanded. Breanna Stewart was having fun again. After years of being the primary option and carrying offensive responsibility, she could now play within the flow and pick her spots. Clark's presence allowed Stewart to conserve energy and still be maximally effective. This is what great point guards do. They make everyone around them better. They create opportunities that didn't exist before. They transform good players into great ones through their vision and unselfishness. The evening scrimmage was the most competitive of the entire camp. Both teams were stacked with talent. Both sides had something to prove. Clark's team, Jackie Young, Breanna Stewart, Aaliyah Boston, and Sabrina Ionescu. Opposing team, Kelsey Plum, Alyssa Thomas, Jewel Lloyd, and Brittany Griner. Elite talent everywhere. Olympic champions on both sides. This was going to be a battle. The game started at a blistering pace. Kelsey Plum hit a three. Clark answered immediately with one from even deeper. Brittany Griner scored inside. Boston responded with a layup off a perfect Clark feed. Back and forth. High-level execution on every possession. But as the game progressed, Clark's impact became increasingly dominant in ways that didn't show up in the box score. The scrimmage was tied at 18 with 7 minutes remaining. Both teams were executing at a level that would challenge most international competition. But Caitlin Clark was about to shift into a gear that nobody in the gym had seen yet. She brought the ball up court slowly, methodically, reading the defense like she was analyzing an equation with multiple variables. Kelsey Plum was guarding her, one of the fastest and most talented defenders in the WNBA, an Olympic gold medalist who'd seen every offensive move imaginable. Clark sized her up from 30 feet out. Plum stayed close, respecting the range. One dribble. Hesitation. Another dribble. Then Clark did something that seemed physically impossible. She went from standing almost still to a full-speed drive in one explosive step. The acceleration was instant and devastating. Plum reacted as fast as humanly possible, but she was already half a step behind. Clark attacked the paint. Brittany Griner rotated over to protect the rim. At 6 feet 9 inches, Griner is one of the most intimidating shot blockers in basketball history. Clark rose up like she was going to shoot. Griner jumped to contest, but Clark never released the ball. She hung in the air impossibly long and delivered a behind-the-back pass to Aaliyah Boston, who'd cut to the rim perfectly timed with Clark's drive. Boston caught it and laid it in before anyone could recover. The coaching staff erupted. That wasn't just a good play. That was world-class basketball IQ combined with elite athleticism and perfect chemistry. Sue Bird literally stood up and applauded. "That's the best pass I've seen all camp," she announced to everyone within earshot. Diana Taurasi nodded in agreement. "That's gold medal basketball right there." On the next possession, Clark did it again, except this time she actually took the shot. She drove left, drew Griner's attention, then Euro-stepped around her and finished with her offhand while absorbing contact from Alyssa Thomas. And won. The conversion made it a three-point play. Clark's team now led 23-18, but she wasn't done making statements. Kelsey Plum tried to answer with an isolation play of her own. She was determined to show she could match Clark's offensive brilliance. Plum created separation with a crossover and rose up for a mid-range jumper. Good look, clean release. The shot was halfway to the basket when Caitlin Clark came out of nowhere and blocked it cleanly. Not a foul, not a reach, just perfect timing and anticipation that allowed a 6 feet 0 inches guard to reject a shot from one of the league's best scorers. The ball went out of bounds. Clark's team retained possession. Coach Reeve called a timeout just to emphasize what had happened. That defensive play was elite. That's the kind of effort and IQ we need on every possession. In the huddle, Clark was already diagramming the next play for her teammates, not waiting for coaches to do it, taking ownership of the team's execution. "Jack, even a screen for Sabrina here," Clark explained, drawing on her hand. "Stewie, you're going to duck in from the weak side. Boston, you're sealing on the block. I'm going to attack, and we'll have 3 options depending on how they defend it." Her teammates listened intently, because Clark wasn't just talented. She understood basketball at a level that made everyone around her smarter. The timeout ended. They ran the play exactly as Clark described. She attacked the paint. The defense collapsed. She kicked it to Sabrina Ionescu in the corner for a wide-open three. Splash. 26-18. The lead was growing. Jewel Lloyd, one of the most explosive scorers in the WNBA, tried to spark her team's comeback. She hit a tough fadeaway jumper, then a pull-up three. Suddenly, it was 26-23, and the game felt competitive again. But Clark immediately responded by taking over the game completely. She hit a step-back three from 28 feet. Then she drove for a layup through traffic. Then she threw a full-court pass to Jackie Young for a transition layup. 8 straight points in 90 seconds. Personal 11-0 run that destroyed the opposing team's momentum. The final score was 35-26. Dominant victory for Clark's team. Her stat line: 19 points, 11 assists for steals, 1 block. Complete performance on both ends of the floor. But the numbers didn't capture the full impact. She controlled the game's tempo, made everyone around her better, executed in crucial moments, defended with intensity, led with confidence and maturity. After the scrimmage ended, Coach Cheryl Reeve gathered everyone for the evening debrief. That, she said, pointing at Clark, is what Team USA basketball looks like. Complete game, elevated teammates, competed on both ends, made winning plays when it mattered most. She paused, making sure everyone understood the significance of what they just witnessed. Some players talk about wanting to represent their country. Some players actually prove they deserve to. What we saw tonight was someone proving it beyond any doubt. The veterans nodded. The younger players absorbed the lesson. This was the standard. This was what earning a Team USA roster spot actually required. Later that evening, Sue Bird spoke with a small group of reporters who'd been granted limited access to observe practice. Caitlin's return from injury has been remarkable, Bird said. But what's even more impressive is her maturity and leadership. She's not just playing great basketball. She's making everyone around her better and setting a cultural tone for this program. One reporter asked the obvious question: how do you think Angel Reese's departure affected the team dynamic? Bird chose her words carefully. Team USA has always been about players who can sacrifice individual recognition for collective success. Some players embrace that. Others struggle with it. The players who remain are the ones committed to whatever role helps the team win. Translation: Reese quit because she couldn't handle not being a star. Clark thrived because she understood that making teammates great was more important than individual glory. Diana Taurasi was more direct when asked the same question by a different reporter. Angel is talented, no question. But talent alone doesn't win gold medals. You need toughness, adaptability, the willingness to do whatever the team needs. If you can't provide those things, you don't belong in this program. She paused, then added, Caitlin has all of those qualities. That's why she's going to be the face of Team USA basketball for the next decade. The next morning brought the final full day of camp before roster decisions would be made. Players arrived knowing that every drill, every scrimmage, every moment could determine their Olympic future. Caitlin Clark arrived at 5:45 a.m., 15 minutes earlier than the day before. Some players chase greatness. Others live in it daily through their habits and commitment. She was putting up shots when Coach Reeve entered the gym at 6:15 a.m. You're here early, Reeve observed. Can't afford to waste time, Clark replied, draining another three. There's too much to work on. Reeve smiled. That's the mentality that builds dynasties. Can I ask you something? Reeve said. Clark nodded while continuing to shoot. Did Angel Reese leaving camp bother you at all? Clark caught the ball, held it for a moment, then answered honestly. It bothered me that she gave up, not because of anything personal between us, but because representing your country is the highest honor in basketball. Walking away from that opportunity because you're uncomfortable or frustrated, that's something I'll never understand. She released the shot. Perfect rotation. Nothing but net. But, Clark continued, her decision made things clearer for everyone else here. You either want this badly enough to fight for it, or you don't. There's no in-between at this level. Reeve nodded. That answer told her everything she needed to know about Caitlin Clark's mindset and character. The final day of camp featured the most intense scrimmages yet. The coaching staff created game scenarios that simulated Olympic pressure. Close games, late game situations, everything designed to see who performed when it mattered most. And what they discovered was something the basketball world was about to witness for the next decade. The final scrimmage scenario. Game tied. 30 seconds remaining. Olympic gold medal on the line, which players could execute when everything was at stake. Coach Reese set up the situation deliberately. She wanted to see who had the mental toughness and basketball IQ to make winning plays under maximum pressure. Caitlin Clark's team had possession. One shot to win it. Everyone in the gym knew who was getting the ball. The question wasn't if Clark would take over. It was how. Clark brought the ball up slowly. 25 seconds on the clock. She surveyed the defense, processing information with computer-like efficiency. Kelsey Plum was guarding her tight. Alyssa Thomas was positioned to help if Clark drove. Brittany Griner was protecting the paint. They designed the defense specifically to stop Clark from getting a clean look. 15 seconds. Clark called for a screen from Brianna Stewart. Stewart came up to set it. Plum fought over the top, refusing to give Clark any space. 10 seconds. Clark rejected the screen and drove left instead. The defense rotated. She picked up her dribble at the free throw line. A dangerous move with so little time remaining. 7 seconds. 3 defenders collapsed on her. Griner stepped up. Thomas closed from the wing. Plum stayed attached from behind. Clark was completely trapped. 5 seconds. And that's when Clark showed why she's different from every other player in the gym. She didn't panic, didn't force a bad shot. Instead, she made the simple, correct basketball play that only players with elite IQ even see in those moments. She fired a pass to Aaliyah Boston, who'd sealed her defender on the block, while everyone was watching Clark. 3 seconds. Boston caught it cleanly. 1 power dribble. Up and under. Finish. Buzzer. Game over. Clark's team wins. The gym erupted. Players celebrated. Coaches nodded approvingly, because what they'd just witnessed wasn't just a good play. It was championship-level decision-making under pressure. Lesser players would have forced to contest a shot, tried to be the hero, worried about their stats or their moment. Clark made a right play, put her teammate in position to succeed, trusted the process and the system. That's what leaders do. Sue Bird approached Clark immediately after the play ended. That's one of the best passes I've ever seen in a pressure situation. Most players don't even see that option with 3 seconds left. Clark shrugged modestly. AB had great position. Easy decision. Except it wasn't an easy decision. It was a product of thousands of hours studying the game, understanding defensive rotations, trusting teammates, prioritizing winning over personal glory. That's the difference between talent and greatness. After the scrimmage, Coach Reese gathered the entire team for the final meeting of camp. Roster decisions will be announced tomorrow morning, she began. But I want to say something to all of you right now while we're together. The gym got quiet. Players sat on the baseline, exhausted but focused. This has been one of the most competitive and impressive camps I've been a part of in my 20-plus years with this program. The talent level is extraordinary. The commitment has been outstanding. And the culture you've built together this week is exactly what Team USA basketball represents. She paused, making eye contact with players around the room. Some of you will make the final roster. Some of you won't. That doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means we have difficult decisions to make based on fit, experience, and what we need to compete for gold. Another pause. The weight of Olympic dreams hung in the air. But I want to specifically acknowledge someone who's shown us this week what it means to be a Team USA player. Everyone knew who she was about to mention. Caitlin Clark came into this camp after missing months of basketball. She could have used that as an excuse, could have asked for patience while she found her rhythm. Instead, she showed up ready to compete at the highest level from minute one. Clark kept her eyes down, uncomfortable with public praise. She's led by example, made everyone around her better, competed on both ends. And most importantly, she's demonstrated the selflessness and maturity that this program requires. That final play we just watched, that's Team USA basketball. That's what we're building toward. The room broke into applause. veterans who'd won multiple gold medals, young players fighting for their first roster spot. Everyone recognized what Clark had accomplished. Diana Taurasi stood up and added her own perspective. I've played with some of the greatest basketball players in history. I've won 5 Olympic golds, and I can tell you with complete confidence, what Caitlin showed this week is special. The combination of skill, IQ, leadership, and unselfishness, that's generational. More applause. Louder this time. The future of this program is in great hands, Taurasi continued, and I'm excited to watch it develop over the next decade. Sue Bird nodded in agreement. The thing that impresses me most is Caitlin's approach to making teammates better. That's not something you can teach. You either have that mindset or you don't. She has it, and that's why this program is going to dominate for years to come. After the meeting ended, players broke into small groups. Some were nervous about roster decisions. Others were confident. Everyone was processing the week they'd just experienced. Aaliyah Boston pulled Clark aside. Thank you for that pass at the end. You could have taken that shot yourself and probably made it. Clark smiled. You had better position. Plus, watching you score was more fun than scoring myself. That sentence captured everything about Caitlin Clark's basketball philosophy. Watching teammates succeed brought her more joy than personal accomplishments. That's why she's special. That's why she's different. That's why Angel Reese never had a chance competing against her. Because basketball at the highest level isn't just about individual talent. It's about elevating everyone around you, making the right play in crucial moments, leading through example rather than demands. Clark embodies all of that naturally. Reese couldn't fake it if she tried. Later that evening, social media exploded with highlights from the camp. Clips of Clark's shooting, her passing, her defensive plays. Every video showed a player operating at a level that most professionals never reach. The basketball world was starting to realize what Team USA's coaching staff already knew. Caitlin Clark wasn't just the future of American basketball. She was the present. One viral clip showed the final play of that pressure scrimmage. Clark's pass to Boston, the finish, the celebration. The caption read, "This is what leadership looks like." The video got 2 million views in 3 hours. Comments flooded in from fans, analysts, and players around the world. That's basketball IQ at the highest level. She makes everyone better. That's what stars do. Angel Reese could never. That last comment appeared hundreds of times, because the contrast between Clark's performance and Reese's early departure couldn't be ignored. One player dominated when pressure increased. The other quit when competition got uncomfortable. History would remember both, but only one would be celebrated. The next morning arrived with nervous energy filling the Team USA facility. Roster decisions would be announced at 10 a.m. Players arrived early, trying to act casual while their Olympic dreams hung in the balance. Caitlin Clark arrived at her usual time, 6 a.m., and put up shots like it was any other day. Because for her, the work never stopped regardless of the outcome. At 9:45 a.m., Coach Reeve gathered everyone in the main conference room. The tension was suffocating. Careers could change in the next 15 minutes. Dreams could be realized or crushed. Reeve stood at the front of the room with a folder in her hands. Inside were the names that would represent the United States at the 2026 World Cup and 2028 Olympics. Before I read the roster, Reeve began. I want to thank every single person in this room. You've given us everything this week. You've competed. You've grown. You've represented this program with class and dignity. Players nodded, but everyone wanted her to just read the names already. The 2026 World Cup roster is as follows. Reeve started reading names. Each one brought relief to the player called and anxiety to those still waiting. Jackie Young. Applause. Brianna Stewart. More applause. Sabrina Ionescu. Continued applause. Aaliyah Boston. Boston exhaled relief. Clark, sitting next to her, squeezed her hand in congratulations. Several more names were read. Elite players who'd earned their spots through performance and experience. And then Coach Reeve paused before reading the final name. And Caitlin Clark. The room exploded with applause. Not polite congratulations. Genuine celebration from teammates who'd watched her earn this moment through dominant performance all week. Clark smiled quietly, nodded in acknowledgement. This was the beginning of something special. After the official announcement, players congratulated each other. Those who made it celebrated. Those who didn't handle disappointment with grace. But everyone in that room understood one thing clearly. The Caitlin Clark era of Team USA basketball had officially begun. Within hours of the roster announcement, the basketball world reacted with a mix of excitement and inevitability. Of course, Caitlin Clark made the team. Anyone who'd watched even 5 minutes of camp knew she wasn't just making the roster. She was going to be the centerpiece of it. ESPN's lead story. Clark's dominant return signals new era for Team USA. The Athletics headline. How Caitlin Clark went from injured to indispensable in 1 week. Bleacher Report. The future is now. Clark takes over Team USA. But the most interesting reactions came from the players themselves. Sue Bird posted on social media, excited for the next generation. The program is in excellent hands. She included a photo of herself talking with Clark during practice. The passing of the torch imagery was intentional and powerful. Diana Taurasi was more direct in her post-announcement press conference. Caitlin showed this week that she's ready to carry this program forward. Her performance wasn't just impressive, it was dominant. She made everyone around her better. And that's exactly what Team USA needs. When asked specifically about Angel Reese's departure, Taurasi didn't hold back. Look, everyone handles pressure differently. Some players rise to challenges. Others fold. Angel made her choice. We're moving forward with players who want to be here and are willing to do whatever it takes to win. The reporter followed up. Do you think Reese could have made the roster if she'd stayed? Taurasi paused, considering her words carefully. Honestly, based on what I saw in the first few days, probably not. The gap between her game and what we need was significant. Maybe leaving early saved her from a more difficult conversation later. Brutal honesty, but that's Diana Taurasi. She doesn't sugarcoat reality for anyone's comfort. Meanwhile, Angel Reese posted her own statement on social media from wherever she'd gone after leaving camp. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions about your career and your mental health. I'm proud of everything I've accomplished and excited for what's ahead. Wishing Team USA all the best. The response in the comments was savage. You quit because you couldn't compete with Caitlin Clark. Mental health excuse when you really just couldn't handle being outplayed. Caitlin made the roster. You made excuses. Thousands of comments along those lines. The basketball community had rendered its verdict, and it wasn't favorable to Reese. Some defended her decision, argued that prioritizing mental health was valid and important, that walking away from a toxic situation showed strength, not weakness. But most people saw through the framing. This wasn't about mental health. This was about ego, about a player who couldn't accept not being the star and chose to quit rather than compete for a reduced role. The contrast with Clark couldn't be starker. Clark had dealt with multiple serious injuries, months of rehabilitation, the frustration of watching her rookie season slip away, the pressure of returning to elite competition after extended time away, and her response: show up earlier than everyone else, work harder than everyone else, make everyone around her better. Led through example. That's mental toughness. That's championship mindset. Reese faced some competitive discomfort and folded within 3 days. The basketball world noticed the difference. Over the next few weeks, as the roster prepared for international competition, the Team USA social media accounts documented their training process. Videos showed Clark working with younger players, teaching them her approach to pick-and-roll reads. Photos captured her staying late after practice to work on her release from international three-point distance. Behind-the-scenes content revealed her leading film sessions, breaking down defensive coverages for teammates. She wasn't just a player on the roster. She was becoming the leader of the program. Sue Bird did an extended interview with ESPN about the transition from her generation to the next. What Caitlin brings is unique, Bird explained. She has elite skill, obviously, but more importantly, she has the mentality that makes everyone around her better. She's not worried about her stats or her recognition. She's obsessed with winning and helping her teammates succeed. The interviewer asked, "Does she remind you of anyone you played with?" Bird smiled. "She reminds me of me, honestly. Not in playing style, we're different players, but in approach. In understanding that your job as a point guard is to make everyone else great first. If you do that, your own success follows naturally. She paused, then added, "That's something a lot of talented players never figure out. Caitlin already has it mastered at 22 years old. That's scary good." Diana Taurasi gave a similar assessment when asked about Clark's potential impact at the Olympics. "She's going to be a problem for international teams," Taurasi said, grinning. "They're not used to dealing with someone who can shoot from that range, make every pass, and control the tempo like she does. Add in Aaliyah Boston and Breanna Stewart? That's going to be really difficult to defend." The international basketball community was also taking notice. Coaches from Australia, France, Spain, and China all mentioned Team USA's new dynamic in interviews. They'd studied Clark's WNBA tape extensively, but seeing her dominate veteran Olympians at camp raised concern to a new level. "She changes everything about how you have to defend Team USA," one European coach admitted. "You can't play traditional coverage because she'll shoot from 30 feet. You can't trap her because she'll find the open player every time. You can't go under screens because she'll pull up immediately. She makes you wrong on every defensive decision." That's the impact of generational talent. It forces opponents to completely rethink their strategy. Meanwhile, back in the United States, the narrative around Angel Reese continued to evolve in unflattering ways. Her Chicago Sky teammates were asked about her Team USA experience during WNBA media availability. The responses were carefully diplomatic but revealing. "Angel has to make the decisions that are right for her," one teammate offered. "We support whatever she chooses to do." Translation: "We're not defending her decision, but we're also not throwing her under the bus publicly." Another teammate was slightly more direct. "Playing for Team USA requires a specific mindset. It's not for everyone. You have to be willing to sacrifice and adapt. That's a personal choice each player makes." Translation: "She wasn't willing to do what was necessary, and we all know it." The coaching staff refused to comment specifically about Reese's departure, but their silence spoke volumes. When asked if they thought Reese could have made the roster, Chicago's head coach simply said, "Team USA makes decisions based on fit and performance. I'm sure they chose the players who best suited their needs." Not exactly a ringing endorsement. As weeks passed and international competition approached, the contrast between Clark's trajectory and Reese's continued to widen. Clark was preparing for World Cup competition, training with Olympic champions, building chemistry with elite teammates, representing her country on the global stage. Reese was posting workout videos on Instagram and promoting her shoe line. Still talented, still marketable, but notably absent from the most prestigious platform in basketball. The question everyone started asking wasn't whether Reese made the right decision. It was whether she'd permanently damaged her international basketball future. Because Team USA doesn't forget, when you quit on the program, you don't usually get a second chance. Too many talented players are waiting for their opportunity. Why would they invest in someone who already proved they can't handle pressure? Sue Bird addressed this question directly when a reporter asked if Reese could work her way back into consideration for the 2028 Olympics. Bird's response was measured but clear. "The door isn't necessarily closed for anyone, but actions have consequences. When you leave a program, you send a message about your priorities and your mental toughness. Future selection committees will remember that." Translation: "She probably burned that bridge permanently." Diana Taurasi was more blunt. "There are 100 players who would kill for the opportunity Angel walked away from. Why would we give her another shot when there are players who've proven they wanted more?" Fair question, harsh reality. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark was focused on one thing: bringing gold medals back to the United States. Her preparation intensified as the World Cup approached. She studied international teams obsessively, watched hundreds of hours of film, worked with skills coaches on adapting her game to FIBA rules and officiating. The commitment was total. The focus was absolute. This is what separates champions from everyone else. When opportunity arrives, champions are prepared to seize it. Angel Reese had the same opportunity. She chose differently. And now the basketball world was about to watch what Caitlin Clark could do on the international stage The 2026 FIBA World Cup arrived with unprecedented excitement surrounding Team USA women's basketball. Not because they were expected to win, everyone always expected that, but because Caitlin Clark's international debut had become the most anticipated moment in women's basketball since Diana Taurasi's first Olympics. The tournament was held in Berlin, Germany. 16 nations competing for the championship. Every team had studied Team USA's roster and identified the same player as the biggest threat. Number 17, Caitlin Clark. The opening game was against Nigeria. Talented team, athletic, well-coached, but not expected to seriously challenge the Americans. Team USA used this game to establish their identity and build chemistry in live competition. From the opening tip, Clark's impact was immediately obvious. She pushed the pace relentlessly. Every defensive rebound became a potential fast break. Nigeria couldn't set their defense because Clark was attacking before they could get organized. First possession, Clark hit Breanna Stewart with a perfect outlet pass for a transition layup. Second possession, Clark pulled up from 28 feet, deep by international standards, and buried a three-pointer before Nigeria even reached half court. Third possession, Clark drove baseline, drew two defenders, and kicked it to Jackie Young in the corner for an open three. Three possessions, three different ways Clark impacted the game. Nigeria was already struggling to keep up. By halftime, Team USA led 58-31. Clark had 14 points, 8 assists, and 3 steals. But the numbers didn't capture her complete control of the game's tempo and flow. The international basketball media was stunned by what they were witnessing. She's playing at a pace we've never seen in FIBA competition. One European analyst commented during the halftime broadcast, "The Americans have always been athletic, but this is different." She's making it look like fast breaks are their primary offense. The second half was more of the same. Clark continued orchestrating Team USA's attack with surgical precision. She finished with 22 points, 12 assists, 5 steals, and only 1 turnover in just 26 minutes. Dominant performance that barely scratched the surface of her capabilities because the game was never competitive. After the game, Nigeria's coach was asked about defending Clark. "Honestly, I don't know how you defend her," he admitted. "She shoots from distances we're not used to guarding. She passes through windows we didn't think existed. And she does everything at a speed that's difficult to match. She's a unique problem that I think many teams will struggle with." Game 2 brought a tougher challenge. Australia, legitimate contenders with size, skill, and championship pedigree. This would be the first real test of how Clark's game translated against elite international competition. Australia's strategy was clear from the opening tip. Make Clark uncomfortable. Apply pressure. Force her into difficult decisions. They assigned their best perimeter defender to shadow Clark full court. They trapped pick and rolls aggressively. They switched everything to prevent Clark from getting comfortable in any action. For the first 8 minutes, the strategy worked. Clark had just 3 points on 1 of 4 shooting. Australia stayed close, trailing only 18-14. Then Clark made an adjustment that changed everything. Instead of fighting against the aggressive defense, she used it against them. When Australia trapped the pick and roll, Clark made the quick pass to Aaliyah Boston, rolling to the rim. When they pressured full court, Clark attacked downhill and got to the free throw line. When they switched everything, Clark isolated mismatches and picked them apart. She didn't force her game. She adapted, found the weaknesses in Australia's defensive strategy, and exploited them systematically. The next 6 minutes were a masterclass in basketball IQ. Clark hit Boston on 3 straight pick-and-roll finishes. Australia adjusted by dropping their big defender. Clark immediately pulled up for 2 three-pointers. Australia tried to trap again. Clark threaded a cross-court pass to Breanna Stewart for an open corner 3. By the time Australia figured out one adjustment, Clark had already moved to the next counter. Team USA closed the second quarter on a 24-8 run. Clark had 11 points and 6 assists during that stretch without forcing a single shot. Sue Bird, watching from the bench in an advisory role, was grinning. "That's what great players do," she told Coach Reese. "They problem solve in real time. Most players need coaches to adjust for them. She's doing it herself on the fly." The final score was 89-67. Clark finished with 21 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds. But more importantly, she'd proven she could dominate even when defenses specifically game-planned to stop her. The international media coverage shifted from curiosity to concern. Team USA has found their next superstar, a French basketball analyst wrote, and she might be even more dangerous than her predecessors because of her range and playmaking. A Spanish sports outlet ran a headline: "Can anyone stop Caitlin Clark?" The answer through the group stage appeared to be no. Team USA demolished every opponent. Clark averaged 23 points and 11 assists, while shooting 47% from three-point range. Ridiculous numbers at any level of basketball. But the individual statistics weren't the story. The story was how Clark made Team USA's offense completely unpredictable and impossible to game plan against. Some possessions she'd shoot from 30 feet. Others, she'd drive to the rim. Some plays she'd orchestrate from the top of the key. Other times she'd cut off the ball and score backdoor. Defenses couldn't commit to any single strategy because Clark operated out of every action in the playbook. Meanwhile, back in the United States, Angel Reese was watching the tournament from home. Her social media presence during the World Cup was notably quiet. No posts about Team USA. No congratulations to former teammates. Just workout videos and brand promotions that felt hollow compared to what was happening on the world stage. Some fans noticed the contrast and weren't shy about pointing it out. Caitlin Clark is representing the country on the world stage, while Angel Reese posts gym selfies. The choices you make matter. Imagine quitting Team USA camp and then watching Caitlin dominate the World Cup. That's gotta hurt. Angel Reese could have been part of this. Instead, she's home posting sponsored content. Crazy. The comments weren't cruel. They were observations about the consequences of choices. Reese had opted for comfort over competition. Clark had chosen the opposite. The results spoke for themselves. The World Cup semifinals brought Team USA's toughest test yet. France. Home crowd, elite talent, defensive intensity that had shut down every previous opponent. The French strategy was fascinating and well-conceived. Don't even try to stop Clark individually. Instead, pack the paint and dare her to beat them with outside shooting. They committed 2 or 3 defenders to every drive. They left Clark's teammates relatively open on the perimeter. The bet was that role players wouldn't make enough shots to beat them. Bad bet, because Clark's teammates weren't role players. They were Olympic champions and all-stars who'd been getting wide open looks all tournament thanks to Clark's gravity. Jackie Young hit 4 3-pointers in the first half. Brianna Stewart added 3 more. Sabrina Ionescu knocked down 2. France's defensive strategy was creating practice shots for elite shooters. And Clark? She recognized what France was doing and adjusted her approach accordingly. Instead of forcing shots, she became a pure facilitator. She drew defenders and found open teammates with pinpoint passes. She ran the offense with patience and precision, waiting for France to make mistakes. By halftime, Team USA led 52-38. Clark had just 7 points, but 9 assists. She completely controlled the game without dominating the scoring. The second half, France adjusted. They started playing Clark more honestly, giving up some paint protection to contest her shots. Perfect. That's exactly what Clark wanted. She immediately attacked the paint aggressively, drew fouls, got to the free throw line, scored on drives that France's adjusted defense couldn't stop. When France tried to go back to packing the paint, Clark hit 3 straight three-pointers that broke the game wide open. Final score, 94-73. Clark's stat line, 24 points, 13 assists, 6 rebounds. Complete performance that showcased every aspect of her game. After the game, France's coach was asked how to defend Clark. He laughed, not mockingly, with genuine respect and a hint of frustration. "You don't defend her," he said simply. "You try to limit her, make her work for everything. Hope she has an off night. But a player of that caliber, you're not stopping her. You're just hoping to survive." That statement went viral because it came from a coach who'd won EuroLeague championships and built his reputation on defensive excellence. And he was admitting that Caitlin Clark was essentially undefendable. The World Cup final awaited. One more game to secure gold and cement Clark's place among international basketball's elite. The World Cup final. Team USA versus Spain. Gold medal on the line. Berlin's Mercedes-Benz Arena was packed with 17,000 fans, creating an atmosphere that rivaled any Olympic final. This wasn't just a championship game. This was Caitlin Clark's coronation on the world stage. Spain came in with a brilliant game plan designed specifically to neutralize Clark's impact. They'd studied every game, every possession, every tendency. Their preparation was meticulous. The strategy: physical pressure from the opening tip, hand checking, body contact, the kind of defense that FIBA referees traditionally allow, but WNBA officials would whistle immediately. Force Clark to work for every inch. Make her uncomfortable. See if the young star would crumble under championship pressure. From the first possession, Spain executed their plan perfectly. Clark brought the ball up and immediately faced full court pressure. Her defender bumped her, hand-checked her, made every dribble a battle. Clark called for a screen. Spain switched and trapped aggressively. She picked up her dribble and had to make a quick pass to escape the pressure. The next possession was the same. Physical defense, constant contact. Spain was daring the referees to call fouls and betting they wouldn't. 6 minutes into the game, Clark had just 2 points on 1 of 5 shooting. Team USA led only 12-10. The strategy was working. Coach Cheryl Reeve called timeout. In the huddle, she looked directly at Clark. "They're trying to frustrate you, make you force bad shots. Don't take the bait. We'll adjust." Clark nodded, but her eyes told a different story. She wasn't frustrated. She was calculating. Coming out of the timeout, Team USA made a subtle adjustment. Instead of Clark bringing the ball up against pressure, they had Jackie Young handle initial possessions while Clark worked off the ball. Spain's defense wasn't designed for that. They'd committed their best defender to shadowing Clark with the ball. When she moved without it, cutting and relocating, their defensive scheme broke down. Clark came off a screen from Brianna Stewart and received the ball in perfect position. Her defender was a step behind. She rose up from 25 feet. Splash. Spain called for their defender to stay tighter on Clark when she moved off the ball. But that created a new problem. When Clark did get the ball, she now had more space because her defender was exhausted from chasing her through screens. Next possession, Clark caught the ball with 3 feet of space. Step back three-pointer. Money. Spain was in trouble now. Their entire defensive strategy was unraveling. They tried going back to trapping Clark with the ball. She immediately hit Aaliyah Boston on a backdoor cut for an easy layup. They tried switching everything. Clark isolated the mismatch and scored on a mid-range pull-up. They tried dropping coverage. Clark pulled up for another three-pointer. Every adjustment Spain made, Clark had an answer for. She was playing chess while they were playing checkers. By halftime, Team USA led 47-35. Clark had 18 points, 6 assists, and had completely taken over the game after that slow start. In the locker room, Sue Bird pulled Clark aside. "That's championship basketball right there. They hit you with their best punch. You stayed composed, made adjustments, and took over. That's what legends do." Clark smiled. "Game's not over yet." "No," Bird agreed, "but it will be soon." The second half began with Spain making one final desperate adjustment. They decided to just live with Clark's scoring and focus on stopping everyone else. Single coverage on Clark. Pack the paint. Force her to beat them by herself. It was a calculated risk. Most players, even great ones, can't score efficiently enough in isolation to win championship games by themselves. But Caitlin Clark isn't most players. Over the next 8 minutes, she put on one of the greatest individual performances in World Cup history. Step back 3 from 30 feet. Swish, drive through contact, finish at the rim, and 1. Conversion made it a 4-point play. Pull up from the wing. Automatic. Another 3-pointer from the top of the key. Didn't even touch the rim. Spain's coach was screaming adjustments, but it didn't matter. Clark was in that rare zone where every shot felt destined to go in. 10 straight points. Personal 10-0 run that pushed Team USA's lead to 67-48. Spain called timeout, but the game was effectively over. The final 8 minutes became a celebration. Team USA's bench was standing and cheering. The crowd, mostly neutral fans, was chanting Clark's name. Even Spain's players were shaking their heads in amazement at what they were witnessing. When Coach Reeve pulled Clark with 2 minutes remaining and the game out of reach, the ovation was thunderous. Players from both teams applauded. Coaches stood. This wasn't just respect for a great performance. This was recognition that they'd witnessed something historic. Final score, 91-68. Complete domination. Caitlin Clark's stat line, 31 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, 3 steals. Shot 6 of 11 from three-point range and 11 of 13 from the free throw line. World Cup MVP. Gold medal. International basketball coronation complete. After the game, as Clark stood on the podium with a gold medal around her neck, Sue Bird handed her the American flag for the traditional victory lap around the arena. "This is your moment," Bird said. "Enjoy it. You earned it." Clark took the flag, draped it over her shoulders, and jogged around the court as fans from every nation cheered. This was bigger than basketball. This was a 22-year-old announcing to the world that a new era had begun. In the post-game press conference, the questions came rapid fire from international media. "How does it feel to win your first World Cup?" Clark smiled. "It feels incredible, but this was a team achievement. Everyone contributed. I'm just grateful to be part of this group. You dominated the tournament. Do you feel like you proved something?" "I don't think about proving anything. I just try to help my team win. If my game translates to international competition, that's great. But it's always about the team first." Perfect answer. Humble, team-focused. Exactly what Team USA represents. A reporter from Spain asked a question everyone wanted to know. "Are you already thinking about the 2028 Olympics?" Clark's eyes lit up. "Absolutely. That's the ultimate goal. Representing your country at the Olympics is the highest honor in basketball. We have work to do to get there, but I'm excited about what this group can accomplish." Meanwhile, back in the United States, the basketball world was processing what they'd just witnessed. ESPN's headline, "Clark's World Cup performance cements her status as international superstar." The Athletic, Caitlin Clark just announced the next decade of dominance. Sports Illustrated, how Clark went from injured to World Cup MVP in 6 months. But the most interesting reaction came from Angel Reese. She finally broke her social media silence about Team USA with a single post. "Congratulations to Team USA on the World Cup gold." No mention of Clark. No acknowledgement of what she'd missed out on. Just a generic congratulations that felt obligatory. The comments on her post were brutal. "You could have been part of this if you didn't quit. Caitlin Clark is everything you pretended to be." This is what happens when talent meets toughness. One wins gold medals. The other posts from the couch. Reese turned off comments within an hour. The message had been received. A week later, Sue Bird did a reflective interview about the World Cup and Team USA's future. "What Caitlin accomplished was remarkable," Bird said. "But what impressed me most wasn't the stats or even the gold medal. It was her maturity and leadership. She handled every challenge with grace and determination. That's what separates good players from great ones." The interviewer asked about the comparison between Clark and previous Team USA stars. "Every generation has their players," Bird responded. "We had Diana. Lisa Leslie's generation had her. Dawn Staley before that. Now it's Caitlin's time. And I think she's going to be special. Maybe the best we've ever seen." High praise from someone who'd seen it all. Diana Taurasi gave her own assessment in a separate interview. "Caitlin has the complete package. Skill, IQ, leadership, toughness. She's not intimidated by big moments. She elevates in pressure situations. That's championship DNA. That's what wins Olympic golds." When asked if she thought Clark could eventually surpass Team USA's all-time greats, Taurasi didn't hesitate. "If she stays healthy and continues developing, yeah, I think she'll end up as the greatest Team USA player ever. She has that potential." Back at Indiana Fever facilities, where Clark had returned to prepare for the upcoming WNBA season, her focus had already shifted to the next challenge. The World Cup was history. The gold medal was won. Now came the harder part, sustaining excellence, building on success. Proving the World Cup wasn't a fluke, but the beginning of sustained dominance. Aaliyah Boston, who'd won World Cup gold alongside Clark, understood what came next better than anyone. "The target is on our backs now," Boston said during a joint interview. "Everyone saw what we can do together. They'll be ready next time. We have to be even better." Clark nodded in agreement. That's what makes exciting. The challenge never stops. You're only as good as your next performance. That mindset is what separated her from players like Angel Reese. Clark wasn't satisfied with past success. She was hungry for the next achievement, the next gold medal, the next challenge to overcome. 2 years later, the 2028 Olympics arrived in Los Angeles. Home soil, maximum pressure, everything Team USA basketball represented on the line. And standing at center court for the opening ceremony, wearing number 17 for Team USA, was Caitlin Clark. No longer the young player proving herself, now the established leader, the face of American basketball, the player every opponent feared and every teammate trusted. Angel Reese watched from home, again, because some decisions you can't come back from. She'd quit when competition got uncomfortable. Clark had embraced every challenge and dominated. She'd prioritized comfort over growth. Clark had chosen excellence over ease. She'd made excuses. Clark had made history. And now, as Clark stood ready to pursue Olympic gold with the eyes of the world watching, one truth was absolutely clear. Some players are built for pressure, built for competition, built for greatness. And some players quit after 3 days at Team USA camp because they couldn't handle being outplayed. The difference between those two types of players? Gold medals, championships, legacy. Caitlin Clark had all three. Angel Reese had Instagram followers and regrets. History would remember both, but only one would be celebrated. The end. So what do you think? Was Angel Reese wrong to quit Team USA camp? Should she get another chance in the future? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss our WNBA coverage. The 2028 Olympics are coming, and we'll be covering every moment of Caitlin Clark's journey to gold.